The International Christian Embassy Jerusalem is your embassy in the heart of Israel, founded in 1980. From our headquarters in Jerusalem through our branches in over 80 nations and yours in Canada, we seek to challenge the church to take up its scriptural responsibility, to remind Israel of the promises made to her in the Bible, and to be a source of practical assistance to all the people in the land of Israel. On today's program, a panel discussion, Building in Judea, Samaria, and East Jerusalem. Is it a provocation? A visit to the ancient site of Magdala. A couple fulfills their ancient dream to live in Israel.
Welcome to our panel discussion. We're talking about Israeli building expansions in Judea, Samaria, and East Jerusalem. Is it a provocation? It's often deemed to be. It's a hot button issue, and this is what we're discussing. And I'm going to start with you, Rod Hembry, who was with us, then Donna Hallbrook and Mark Vandermas. Rod, take it away. Is it a provocation?
Well, the provocation, that's an interesting word. And as I was looking at that, I thought about this. When I first went to Israel, actually back in 1991, I was there. I got stuck there because they were going to start the war for Iraq at that point, George Bush Sr. And it was interesting because they didn't have the walls and they didn't have the divisions, and there wasn't the building restrictions that there is today. Now, you go forward to today, and all of a sudden, there's these building questions that people are asking. They're talking about all these different things. And I thought about this, and I thought, you know, what is it that's the problem? But really, it's not the building. It's just that Israel is in the place. They want Israel out. The Palestinians do. The Palestinians who desire them to be out. And I think it's important for us to recognize that Israel is actually building, and they not only have a right to build, but it's their nation, and they have not only the right but the privilege to do so. And any nation that would not build for their own people, to make their own people have a place to live and all of that stuff, you ask the question, well, what in the world do you have that nation for? So the question is it a provocation which brings forth anything to make people mad or to get people stirred up? Well, I don't know. I mean, is it a provocation for us to build? It is a provocation for us to build a house next to our others, or others to build a house and to buy a house? I mean, that's the question. And so I don't think it's a provocation if you look at it from a biblical standpoint, and if you look at it from the standpoint of Israel, and it's a provocation if you choose to make it a provocation.
Now we're going to go to our other guest shortly, but you said some very critical information in there, and I want to take our viewers to the article that we're focusing on. It's written by Carolyn Glick, a well-known writer with the Jerusalem Post. She wrote an article called "Hope is Not a Strategy," and her premise is that the government is playing games, and no matter what Israel does, it's going to be attacked in any case. It's going to be criticized no matter what. So she's criticizing Netanyahu now and his ministers for what she says maintaining an undeclared freeze on construction for Israeli Jews in Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria to appease, she says, its critics.
Well, yeah, and the truth is that the Barack Obama issue in the United States of America, that's the issue. And of course, you might say that Netanyahu is trying to keep that intact. But I would say that forget about those issues for a moment. If you look at the idea of what is talked about in building these places and doing all of this, this is what a country does. This is what you do as people, as a culture. So what's the problem? Well, the problem is you've got, two cultures there. So what you're really saying is you're using this to make a division. And then the next step will be, okay, we want this, we want that. And the next thing you know, you've got Israel that's if you continue to go down this path, you've got Israel that no longer is in a place where they can call Israel. That's a problem.
Donna, your views?
It's a natural growth. I agree with Rod. It's a growing nation. There's 8 million in Israel today, and 25% of them are not even Jewish. 1.7 million are Israeli Arabs. Who are they building for?
And I'm going to have to add to that, with all the building going on, there's a process called Aliyah, where people of every ethnicity you could imagine. They're flocking to Israel, going back to Israel, and the population just keeps on expanding in what's being dubbed this apartheid state, when every race across the globe is being absorbed into Israel. Your views, Mark?
Well, implicit in the question is the idea is a moral judgment in that Israel, number one, is doing something that is illegal or immoral, and that simply is not the case. You know, the whole world recognized the ancient ties to Israel by the Jewish people in the 1922 League of Nations mandate for Palestine, and all of the land west of the Jordan River was to be for the Jewish people, and the mandate specifically authorized and encouraged them to build there. So they're not doing anything illegal, they're doing nothing immoral, it's merely a tactic to try to portray them as really they're the innocent victims being portrayed as the aggressors. And you know, Dr. King, you know, was in jail in Birmingham, and he was demonized for provoking violence by going to protest in Birmingham. And in his letter from the jail, he wrote about how it's like condemning a man with money for being robbed, and society must protect the robbed and punish the robber. And in this case, Israel is not the robber. And the people being provoked are violent racists who hate Jews.
Yeah, it's true.
And there's often money involved in all of these sinister behind-the-scene issues. And according to NGO Monitor, this is something that Carolyn Glick also points out in her article. Between 2012 and 2014, foreign governments transferred a whopping 170 million shekels to 27 organizations operating as Israeli nonprofits. Now, the foreign government funding comprised 65% of overall funding for these very highly critical, very anti-Israel groups. Now, since these groups are registered as nonprofits, she's saying the funds that they're receiving from the foreign governments are tax exempt, which translates into Israel taxpayers actually subsidizing these agents of foreign governments who are against the state of Israel. They're working against the leaders, against the state of Israel as a nation, and of course they're promoting BDS, IAW, and the like. So this is the kind of challenge that Israel faces, let alone building in Judea, Samaria, and East Jerusalem and being considered an act of provocation.
I think if you look at this and you understand what's happening, you go back, you know, to 1948, you go back just before 48, and you look at it, and nobody wanted that country. At that time, they called it Palestine. Nobody really wanted it. It's a big sandbox. Nobody really wants it. But what happens is the Israelis, they become a nation, and they start to take this. They wash the sand. They do all kinds of things, and they begin to make a nation. And suddenly, out of the clear blue sky, there's these cultures, and these cultures are demanding, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Well, what do you mean, wait a minute? You didn't want the country, 20 years ago, or 40 years ago, or 68 years ago. Now you want the country.
Because the Jews have it now.
Yeah, they have it.
Zionism brought in all of those Arabs in the region who were drawn by the prosperity that was.
Yes.
But the thing that is ignored is that with the development of construction, 67% are done illegally by Palestinian Arabs.
Wow.
But you don't hear that side.
That's a very important point to note.
Yeah, bad for the news.
You brought back 1948 that I think is very important to understand, because when the British partition plan came into being, and this is something that you look at in your work as well, Mark, when that British partition plan came into being, the Arabs, it was supposed to be a solution for Arab nationalism and Zionism. And the partition plan overwhelmingly favored the Arabs. And it was agreed upon by the Arab leaders. And here we have it, 1948, this tiny, tiny piece of land by comparison was attacked.
Absolutely.
And that was the two-state solution come and gone right there.
Right there. And it's, this reoccurs, keeps reoccurring. Everybody's trying to, two-state solution and help the Arabs and help the Palestinians and help them all. But the truth is that God himself has designated this land, Israel, for his people. It is for his people. Now, I don't know what you have to do to go against God, but I don't want to be somebody who goes against God. And why do the nations rage? Psalm 2 says. Why do they rage? Because God laughs. And that's the end. The end of it is, you're not going to go against God, are you? So that's the end of it.
Any final quick word from the two of you? Okay, you're good, Donna?
I'm good.
Hey, we're all good. Okay. And on that note, I'd like to thank my panel very much. We're going to close. We'll be back after this.
Amos chapter 9, verses 14 and 15. I will restore the fortunes of my people Israel, and they shall rebuild the ruined cities and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and drink their wine, and they shall make gardens and eat their fruit. I will plant them on their land, and they shall never again be uprooted out of the land that I have given them.
I'm in the Galilee with my friends Neely and Arnie Abrahams, and they're from Montreal and from Toronto. And you made Aliyah how long ago?
Coming up on 4.5 years ago.
All right, so one day you just woke up and thought this is it, or what?
Not for me. Neely, it's been Neely's lifelong dream
Yeah.
to do that. As a matter of fact, the first year we were married, coming up on 12 years, was my first time in Israel. I had never been to Israel before.
Wow.
And that first trip, Neely was quite the tour guide, and that was the start for me. That lit my fire.
That did it for you?
Yeah, and we came back a second time, a third time, and
Yeah.
then we started thinking seriously about
Did you
making
stay
it up.
for a long while, like when you came back, or you just came like a tourist?
Just as a tourist
Yes.
for 2 weeks at a time, 3
Okay,
weeks at a time.
yeah.
And after each visit, it became more important for myself to really have that connection. It started really connecting with me. And we started thinking seriously about making Aliyah.
Okay. How was the process for you, the actual physical making that Aliyah? Was that a difficult process for you? Like you identified this area? Yes,
So we
you know?
identified the area mainly because my parents are Israeli, and I spent a lot of time in the north. My grandparents are from Haifa.
Okay.
And I love the north. I love the greenery. I love the lushness. I love being, I don't know, I just found the north really speaking to me, soothing and speaking to me.
Yeah.
So when Arnie and I were thinking about a place, we thought of the north. And we found this sweet little town. And we really connected to it. We connected to it as a place that we belong to. So, and then the rest of the process, it's whatever everyone else has. The Nefesh B'Nefesh, they helped us with our paperwork, and we had a great mover, and we made the decision to bring our furniture and our stuff so that we'd feel at home as we're growing
and
to
your
our
drum
new home.
set.
My drum set, pretty important.
Yeah, so as we were.
I have great neighbors, by the way. They don't mind me playing
Good,
at all.
excellent. Well, you've got a little space back here.
We do.
You're quite
Luckily.
beautiful.
Yeah. So, and Hebrew was easy for me. I spoke Hebrew at home. Arnie went to Ulpan.
Okay.
5.5 months of Ulpan, which was quite interesting, but quite a process I'm glad I went through. I had spoken a little bit of Hebrew before and taken some lessons, and I knew how to read and write, but this was pretty intensive program for someone, that's not a youngster.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to meet the people and really get a feel.
So
for what
on a
everyone has to go
day-to-day
through.
basis, you speak Hebrew?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yes.
Very
I
good.
have Israeli friends and Israeli relatives. So, yeah. I speak
So
Hebrew.
we're at your Yavnal B&B and your beautiful gardens here with
Thank
fruit
you.
Thank you.
trees. And this is not in its most lush season, but it's
in
It's
citrus.
incredible.
It's in
It's in-
citrus mode
yeah,
right now in the
wonderful.
winter.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
What made the decision for B&B then?
Oh, that's.
Well, for myself, I'm a professional musician by trade. And when I got off the road touring North America, I ended up doing a job at the Shaw Festival, which is close to
yes, of course.
Niagara Falls and Niagara on the Lake.
Yes, wonderful.
A lot of your listeners, I'm sure,
Yeah,
are familiar
yeah.
with the area. And I had an apartment in Toronto, but I didn't want to commute after every show. So I stayed with an English couple in their bed and breakfast. It was almost identical to what we have
really?
here. So I always had that at the back of
I
my
see.
mind to do something like this. I went to Ulpan first, we did some work with the house, and then I spoke to Neely and says, let's give it a go. And as it turns out, we've been really, really pleased meeting many people from all over the
Excellent.
world.
So you've realized your dreams together.
Yes. We love inviting people into our home, and I love to cook.
And you and Hannah are
Yeah,
we can watch your videos on Facebook and
Yeah.
maybe on your website,
Gallery Green, yeah, so that's-
.com, so we can learn how to cook Israeli as well with
Yes.
wonderful fresh olive oil. Thank you so
Definitely.
much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll be
Thank you.
back.
Thank you. Oh, that's great.
I'm here with Father Timothy at Magdala in the Galilee. Great to meet you,
Nice to meet you
Father
all.
Timothy.
Thank you for coming.
This is a very exciting location where we're at. Can you tell us how you got involved with Magdala?
Yes, well, in 2006, one of our priests, the priest from our congregation, the Legionaries of Christ, Father John Solana, he came down to the Galilee area, and he had a desire in his heart during prayer to build a public sanctuary in honor of the public life of Jesus. So we were able to buy the land, which used to be called Hawaii Beach. People came down here, and they had their bungalows all built along the property here, and they would come down for their weekends to swim in the lake. And then Father was able to buy this land, and we were going to just build a pilgrim house and the center for the public life of Jesus, and then we started discovering all of the archaeology. So that was in 2009 when we started digging, and you'll see everything that we found here underneath the ground for 2,000 years.
It's a very exciting project.
Yeah.
You had no idea that you
No.
were in the middle of an archaeological dig.
None at all.
So this represents a first century synagogue?
Everything in the town is first century.
All right.
After the Jewish revolt in the year 66, 67 here, the Jewish community leaves, and so there's nothing built after that. In many other places here in the Holy Land, you find the different time periods. Here you just find first century. And of the more than 2,300 coins that we found here, all of them are in that time period of the first century. So,
Where are those coins today?
well, we have a lot of them in our storage. They have to be
right.
restored and renewed and studied. And some of the others, the more important ones, are down in the Rockefeller Museum in Jerusalem.
Oh, I see. Okay, because Israel Antiquities would have a keen interest
Right,
in
right.
archiving that.
Right,
All
right. So we found everything here is first century. So the synagogue obviously is first century. And in all of Israel now, up until now, they've only found 7. This, we believe, is one of the most well-kept, and it's the only one that has the mosaics and the frescoes, and then the Magdala stone that we found that we'll talk
So
about.
we'll get to see these items,
Yes, we will.
right?
Yes.
How is this significant to Christians?
Well, this is really, when we started, we thought the public life of Jesus, and then God has this underground for 2,000 years, and we said,
Yeah,
no,
preserved.
this isn't just for Christians. This is a crossroads
Yes.
between Jewish and Christian history.
It is.
Because we have the synagogue of the Jewish community,
Right.
but we're on the pathway of Jesus who walks through here.
Right.
And we know from the Gospel of Luke that Jesus went out through all of Galilee preaching in the synagogues, healing and curing the sick,
Right.
and preaching the kingdom of God. From Capernaum to here, this is the only other
Yeah,
synagogue, so
Capernaum, yeah.
we believe that he was in the synagogue preaching the gospel in the first century here with us.
Wow,
So,
very good. Father Timothy, what's the long-term goal here?
well, the most important goal that we have here is the service of the people who come to visit us here and who are able to have a first century experience in our 21st century atmosphere. So the digging was very important so that we could make this available to everybody and they could experience what was going on here and in the holy place that it is for the Jewish and then also for the Christians who come here to see on the gospel trail to see where Jesus preached and where he walked and where he taught. We want to offer a pilgrim center that we're building now so that people can come here and not just come through and go back, but
Right.
to come and experience and be able to pray here and read the gospel and meditate and reflect. And then we've also built the Duc and Altum Center that we'll see later, which is built in 2 parts. One part is also another vocation that we felt here, which is not only being open to all cultures, like up in the Jewish and the Christian cultures, but also because this is the hometown of Mary from Magdala.
Right.
We have here the Mary Magdalene Institute for the Dignity of Women, and we're going to be promoting that through our prayer and very
Right.
actively for the culture of the dignity of women.
It's women in ministry that is your focus, which is a
Yes.
very exciting one.
Yes, yes. Mary from Magdala, she's
Yeah.
the apostle of the apostles. After the resurrection, Jesus sends her and says, go and tell my disciples. So women have a very, very important role. There's a lot of healing to be done in the hearts of women,
Right.
a lot of cultural change to be done.
Right.
But then there's a great field of ministry and openness for women to do a lot of good in this world.
That's exciting. Thank you, Father.
No, thank you.
Psalm chapter 52, verse 8. but I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the mercy of God forever and ever.
Joanna,
Yes.
tell us about what we're seeing here now.
So we have arrived at our ancient olive press, the heart of culture here in the Holy Land. This was obviously not a family local olive press. This was an industrial-sized olive press. We have a mikveh, ritual baths in the area, was produced olive oil in the area to be taken up to the temple. So how would it work? Again, you have to imagine harvesting season, the olive trees full of olives. You have come about a month and a half after the olive season. However, I found the last 2 olives that I have seen in the whole of the land of Israel from an olive tree. And they are literally just bursting with oil.
Shall we mix some olive oil?
Yes, I think that would be great. As long as did you have enough breakfast, Donna? You got enough strength in your arms?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to put these olives here, and I need you to push this. You might need me to help you, because it's kind of heavy. There we go. You can do it by yourself, I think. Okay, now obviously there would be a mule or a donkey. Keep going a little bit. Okay. There we go. All right, there we go. 2 crushed olives. Now you have to understand the difference between crushing grapes and crushing olives. When you crush the grapes, you don't want to crush the pit. But when you crush the olives, it's important because a lot of the oil is in the pit. 30% of the oil. Can you feel it?
I can feel it.
Can you feel it oily? I can see it shining here on my hands. See, if you want now, I can take some of this oil and I can anoint you.
Oh,
See, there you go, like the priests and the kings. Now you have to understand the word to anoint in Hebrew is limshoch. The anointed one is the Mashuach. Now if that's the word, sounds like the Mashiach, the Messiah, is literally the anointed one. The one where the olive has been taken, the oil has been taken, and put on the foreheads of the priests and of the and of the kings. And I can see here the oil that is. Can you see the oil inside the pit there? It's shining with oil. Now, obviously, olive oil was the essence of life back then. It was light. The olive tree was described as the tree of light. It was what was used in ancient olive lamps. We know the story of Matthew of the 10 maidens and the olive oil lamps. And
how about the time of
here, let me just show you here. You can almost squeeze
Hanukkah.
Oh, of course, in the time the miracle of Hanukkah, where you have to realize that what we've done here is we have pressed the olives. Okay, we've just broken up the olives. We haven't yet taken the oil out of them. Think en masse. You would then take all the olives from here. This place would be full of brown olive mash. You would then take a basket like this, and then you would take the basket full of olive mash and more baskets, and then you would pile them up under the press. And then the press would be turned. This would push down this log, wouldn't have that there, would be pressed down, and the olive oil would ooze and drip out of the sides and gradually go into this collection hole here, which would have water at the bottom. Yeah. The first press is the extra virgin. Why? Because the lesser presses you have, the lesser impurities come out. The more times you press, the more impurities come out.
I'm standing today with Dr. Susanna Kokkonen, Director of Christian Friends of Yad Vashem, right at the site in Jerusalem at Yad Vashem Memorial and Educational Center. Susanna, it's a beautiful day here. Show us what we are seeing here.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are standing in a very special spot, kind of between the past and the future, because if you look behind us, you see the museum, a very special building designed by architect Moshe Safdie. And this is the museum where we have the Holocaust history, the artifacts where we tell the story of what happened in the Holocaust. If we would be able to look at another direction, we would see the School for Holocaust Studies, and that's the future, because that's teachers and the young people who come and they study the Holocaust. And really, here in the Mount of Remembrance, where Yad Vashem is located, it's really past and future that are meeting each other.
And what significance does this have in the educational? Can you tell us more about the educational aspect, about the future?
So one of the things that Yad Vashem does is education. We have an international school for Holocaust studies here at the campus. And what that means in practice, it means that teachers and educators from all over the world come to Yad Vashem to study how to teach the Holocaust, anti-Semitism, and even Israel today. We also have parliament members, journalists, people of influence coming here to study. And they don't only study with our academics, but they also meet with Holocaust survivors. And that meeting is the one that really changes people, because then you realize that it really happened. And it's people who are still alive, some of them, and they tell you their personal story. And one of those survivors is actually the childhood friend of Anne Frank. Often, especially the younger people today, feel that 70 years is a long time and it's ancient history. But then when they come here and they meet the people and they say, well, I was on that list,
Yes.
the story comes alive.
We conclude our program today with some sights and sounds within Israel.
Linda? Well, did you guys? What's that up there? Because he's. Well, I don't think
Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to visit our website at www.icejcanada.tv or call us at 1-866-324-9133. 100% of what we receive from you toward a project goes to that designation. Through your contribution to ICEJ Canada, you can participate by giving to Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors, Women at Risk Red Carpet Project, Operation Life Shield Bomb-Proof Shelters, Shoulder to Shoulder Alias Support, Bet Singer Children's Home, Israel in Crisis, ICEJ Communication Media Fund, Christian Friends of Yad Vashem, Magen David Adom Emergency Services, Canada Israel Young Adult Scholarship, Equip and Teach, Bet Rachel Strauss Inclusive Community, Gift Estate and Securities Funds.